My name is Susan Gale, and I'm with Caroline County Public Schools Parent-Teacher Resource Center. I'm the Special Ed Parent-Teacher Resource Coordinator. We have Melissa White, who is also with Caroline County Schools. She's the Special Education Transition Coordinator. With Spotsylvania County Parent Resource Center, we have Courtney Seeley as the Teacher Facilitator and Sandra Sprague as the Parent Facilitator. With Stafford County Parent-Teacher Resource Center, we have Becca Leggett as the Educator Coordinator and Marie Waite as the Parent Coordinator. We are all part of the FACT Committee, and that is the Fredericksburg Area Council on Transition. This is comprised of schools, organizations, and agency representatives, as well as family members and individuals with disabilities. And it creates opportunities to assist individuals with disabilities and their families to gather knowledge and resources regarding transition from school to adult life in the community. We've received funding through a Virginia Department of Education regional grant that the Region 3 Parent Resource Centers, which includes Caroline, Spotsylvania, and Stafford, have applied for together to fund various projects. Whole Life Ahead is one of those projects. This enables us to provide the workbook and other transition resources to families free of charge. At the end of the presentation, families will be able to sign up to receive a Full Life Ahead workbook, a workbook for families created by families to assist in planning for the future for a young person with disabilities. H.O.P.E, which is helping other people envision. We are looking forward to a future where the individual with a disability is a contributing, productive member of their community. They are living as independently as possible. None of us is totally independent. We all rely on others to some degree, and so will your children as they transition. Each will require different supports and different levels of support. The author of this workbook has lived your experiences. They have worried about what their child with disabilities would do in their community, where they would live, where they would work, would they go to college or other post-secondary training, or would they be at home sitting on the couch doing nothing? That is why they felt so driven to create this workbook, and through a grant were able to have it published for other families to use and benefit from as they planned with their son or daughter. So these parents have been there, and they're still there providing these resources.
So what is transition? Transition is the process students, their families, and educators use to prepare for life after high school, to identify the desired outcomes, and to plan community and school experiences to assure that students acquire the knowledge and skills to achieve their goals. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA 2004, defines secondary transition as a practical guide to life after high school. Transition planning should be focused on academic achievement and functional performance to facilitate participation in post-secondary activities, such as continuing education, career and technical education, employment, adult services, independent living, and community participation. So why the TRAIN logo on the front of the workbook? The families found that in order for their child to make the move from school to life and the adult world successfully, it would take a team of supporters. So their thoughts were that they needed everyone on board, and to get the young person with the disability on the right track and keeping them there made the TRAIN logo seem appropriate. The focus of this presentation is about who your children will have on board, who is everyone, and how to begin getting your child on the right track for their transition. We will be referring to the workbook throughout the presentation. We all go through many changes or transitions throughout our lives. Some examples are moving from grade to grade, changing schools, moving from one city to another, or one home to another, job changes, etc. The transition planning we are referring to is the move from school to adult life in the community. Experiences that help your child develop skills needed for transition, making connections with others who can support their transition, and developing a written plan to achieve future hopes and dreams. Transition requires a lot of planning, but where and when does this planning take place? IEP meetings beginning the year the student turns 14 years of age, or it could be earlier. Pages 162 through 177 in your workbook will address the IEP. It talks about who, the what, the when, the where, and the why of IEPs. Please review this at a later time. And if you have not done so, plan to attend an IEP training offered in the community by a local PRC or other organization. Visit your PRC and talk with the staff to be sure you know your rights and responsibilities when you are the parent of a child with an IEP. We are not able to address those things during this presentation due to the limited time, but we will talk about one very important part of the IEP, the transition plan. The IEP meeting agenda states that the transition plan is completed prior to the other goals. That is because the transition goals help determine what other goals need to be addressed. What are the future hopes, goals, dreams for independence after leaving high school? What activities and services are needed to reach those goals? And who needs to be involved in the planning? When will adult services and agencies be included in that planning? And are special supports needed to achieve those desired results? Post-secondary goals. All students must have secondary goals in their IEP the year they are turning age 14. Goals are in the areas of education, training, employment, and independent living. We're going to watch a video, and they're going to address some transition information.
It's important to start talking with children early about what transition after high school is going to look like. But the transition plan itself must be in place at the age of 16 in the IEP. They should include post-secondary goals as well as transition services. So those post-secondary goals should be very specific, not vague aspirational goals, but very concrete steps that you expect your child to take after high school. It is so important that they have particular steps that they're going to take. What types of services? Do they need to visit college campuses? Do they need to be familiar with how to navigate in the community, how to self-advocate, how to ask for the services that they need? The transition plan should include realistic but achievable goals. For example, some students might say, I want to play in the NBA after I graduate from high school, and they're not playing basketball in high school. That would be an aspirational goal, but one that's not very realistic. But a realistic goal would be to attend community college to get a technical degree, or to go work in supported employment in a veterinary clinic if that student is really interested in animals. If it's not realistic to expect that a student is going to be in the tiny percentage of those who get to play in the NBA, but the student really loves basketball, then they might be able to work as maybe volunteer initially as a manager on a college sports team or a local sports team, or go to community college and get a degree in something related to athletics, like athletic training or something like that. So there are a lot of ways that they could work either as a volunteer or eventually in paid employment in a field in which they're particularly interested. Parents know their children better than anyone. So you know the conversations that you've had, you know what your child is interested in, and you can share that with the IEP team. You can talk about the things that you know your child wants to do. And of course, the child should be a part of the process as well. They should be attending the IEP meeting and adding their thoughts and opinions and feelings about what they want to be doing after high school. But the parents really are an important participant in that process because, again, they know the child better than anyone and have shared in helping create the dreams and the vision that the child has for the future.
So what should we think about as we complete the transition plan? Future hopes, dreams, transition interviews are completed at the school. Vocational assessments, interest inventories, these give the students a voice. Some students may not have a strong means to communicate. Visuals, work samples, talking with family, including the siblings. What activities and services? Visit college websites. Visit colleges to talk with disability counselors, visits to adult agencies, attending local transition fairs, job shadowing, planning a meal and shopping for groceries, social skills training. Who is responsible for the activities? Your classroom teacher, parent, agency representative? When will adult services be involved? By age 16, every transition plan should include at least one agency linkage. What special supports will my child need? Assistive technology or visual supports, strategies? I'll turn it over to Susan now.
So what is self-determination? Self-determination is making your own choices, but not necessarily the same as being independent or self-sufficient. Some of those skills that are needed are self-awareness, assertiveness, problem solving, and self-advocacy. We're going to take a look at the I'm Determined website here to see how that looks for you. You'll find lots of information here. So this is the main page of the I'm Determined website, and you'll see that there is a tab for quick links, which has lots of good things and resources there. A tab for educators, a tab for parents, where you can look at the critical decision points for parents of children with disabilities and many other resources. A tab just for the youth, other additional resources and videos, and then a tab for the summits. These are things that happen every year where parents and the students can go through training. The students go through training as well and do presentations and learn to be self-advocates. So this is a wonderful website to get information. So we want to make sure that you are reviewing your transition plan for your child. And if you have any questions, again, as we've said earlier, contact your Parent Resource Center or your child's case manager. Working together is collaboration. That's another term that you might hear as well. We have an obligation to work together. We have equal relationship on the team. There may be differences of opinion, but those are encouraged and freely expressed. We have mutual trust, respect, and support, and genuine communication. Helen Keller said, alone we can do so little. Together we can do so much. And that is so true, isn't it? Different experiences and expertise are there on that team. We see the student in different situations and settings as well when we have those team members. Remember, the parent and student are the only two team members that remain year after year, making you two the most important members every year.
So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about dreaming and having big dreams for our kids and helping our kids have dreams for themselves as we go along. It's hard at times not to have those predetermined expectations based on that label, that medical diagnosis that you're given about your individual with disabilities. But we have to help our children and individuals with disabilities dream about their future. What is it they want for themselves? What do they want it to look like? What do they want their life to look like after they're done with school? Many years ago, I was lucky to hear about a lobbyist in Washington, D.C. She has significant disabilities, but she works in the area of public policy for people with disabilities. And she talked about that when she was young, her parents had hopes and dreams for her siblings that were typically developing, but they didn't have any hopes and dreams for her, and she didn't have any for herself. And it was later on in life she realized that if she was going to succeed, she had to learn to dream about what her future would be and what she wanted to do with her life. And there's a lot of information that they pack into medical diagnosis, IQ scores, and things that tell us about a person. And here, typically when I talk about this, I talk about my son. Some of y'all know me. I have a son who up until 7, they said, oh, he's delayed. He's just delayed. So we went to a doctor for an ADD eval. We went on to make sure he wasn't having any seizures. And it was in that point in time, they said, can we do some genetic testing? We said, sure. Weeks and weeks and weeks went by. We finally got to see our doctor again. And she said, what were your results? And we said, we don't have. So she called and she's sitting on the phone and she's looking at us with this strange expression. She goes, well, not very, as she's talking to him. And she's answering some questions. When she got off the phone, she said they had to send his blood work on to another researcher, a specialist. And she said their question they asked me was, how devastated is this kid? And if you've ever met my son, he's behind. Yes, he has a significant intellectual delay, but he plays golf, he rides horses, he works. And she was looking at him and she said, they said that what they saw gave them large concern. They thought he would be completely devastated. So it was a few days later, my husband and I got to talk to the researcher that had his blood work. And he said to us, he goes, we are not at the point, do we know when we'll ever be at the point that we can explain why your son can even function? That was pretty devastating information for us, but it didn't take us long to go, oh my goodness. Thank goodness nobody told us that. We didn't predetermine what we thought he could do based on what we'd been told. So through those 7 years, he had persevered, he had tried, everybody else had tried. And so when I look at my son, I realize he has come so far beyond what medical science would have ever said he could do. I have to realize that as parents, families, and caregivers, we have to remember that if it's typical and normal for our kids at any age and grade level to be dreaming about a future and what their life might hold, it's going to be typical and normal for them despite their disabilities. That disability label, medical diagnosis tells you about exactly that label and that medical diagnosis. It cannot tell you about the person, their perseverance, their want to succeed, their want to see a successful future for themselves. So no matter what we've been told about our family members' disabilities, we have to remember we have to help them dream. So how do we do that? We have to start thinking about what's going to be set up for life after school. While they're in school, we have our IEP teams. When we go into transition, we have that transition team. So we have that comfort of having that school-based team. But what happens when they leave school? So we have to start thinking ahead about who's going to help us plan when our child no longer has an IEP team, when they no longer have these school-based services. And we have to expand our support. So we have to look about who will participate, who can help us brainstorm, dream, imagine what could be ahead, who will focus on the things that give our child a purpose and a sense and a meaning in life. So we have to start gathering those people and those things around us. So in your book, we are giving you a little micro version of what is in this book that you'll receive. You're going to go through this and you're going to think about what is a HOPE team? Who is a HOPE team for my child? That means helping other people envision. They have a whole program based around and a foundation based around creating these HOPE teams for people with disabilities. So who can support them to find their voice? Who can assist them in planning a future that they want and that they feel would be successful? Who can help with decision making? Who can help with those finances and managing those sorts of things? Who can help them find a job? And how can we provide friendship for our children with disabilities as they go into adulthood? And also to support community connections with those agencies and those folks that will step in to help with these pieces. So we're going to show you a little YouTube video from Full Life Ahead about a HOPE team, what they are, and it's going to kind of show you how they work.
A lot of times hope is a hard thing. They come to us and the true meaning of the word to them just doesn't even exist in their hearts. We empower people to think beyond their present circumstances.
What we try to do with the HOPE teams are to fashion those out of friends and associates, individuals that a person has run into. We bring service providers to bear on the issue.
I was a little nervous at first because I've never seen that big of a crowd there for me.
Had about 36 people crammed in my house, but it really was wonderful meeting. Those folks are so invested, and then we start to find out resources that they have that nobody ever imagined that they have that actually relate to the individual with disability.
He does. He takes the initiative.
Self-confidence.
I love helping kids.
So he likes to help other people succeed.
Social interaction. I know he already said this, but that's really huge.
Being alone doesn't work, but being with a lot of folks, around does work.
That's an option, you know, at a community gym or places that fitness program.
Yeah, you need to check into the Google Rec Center. They're doing that.
Yeah. There's a director of those services at who you get to do the fitness part of it and to make children and all the customers' life very happy at a Y or a Hoover Rec or something like that, a part of the department. We have it in our nursing homes now, teenagers, 20s, and he would work well, and I'd be more than happy to check on Monday.
That would be great. I just can't tell you how dynamic and wonderful this is.
And they just ask Josh questions. And some of those questions were things like, you know, what are your dreams? What are your goals? What do you really want?
It was a dramatic development over the next 6 months of going through this process every month, having people over, coordinating this effort to get Jody a full-time job.
Now I want to be able to help others, so I'd be willing to go do that for anybody.
You look at an individual with a disability, it doesn't matter what the disability is, and you know, looking at them that day, when they say, I want to do this, that they can achieve their dreams. You know it.
They do give you hope for the future.
So that gives you a good idea about what a HOPE team is. It's gathering those people around to talk about the strengths, to have the person with individual with disabilities there to talk about what they like to do, what they would like to do, and everybody brainstorm, how can we make this happen? How can we do that? So who do you put on a HOPE team? It's a little daunting if you think about doing it all by yourself as parents or a family member. But there's so many people you can put together to help support that child. So you've got your child, your young adult. So who can we think about? Family and friends that are in their lives, school and paid providers that can help participate, the community agencies and different people in the community that they're around. And if you're a member of a faith-based organization, people that know your child and know your family member through those. Those are the kind of people that could be involved in a HOPE team and look at what's ahead in the future. So at this point, we're going to address a new section that they added in the book. This book that we're using for these sessions is brand new from Full Life Ahead. They added a section, and this is the section that they added because this was important information that we have to think about for our family members with disabilities. So what does health have to do with transition? Well, when we start thinking about healthcare and health in general and what's ahead, we have a lot of barriers that we have to address as we're looking at this. We have barriers for the individual, but we also have barriers for the family members that are coming into this. So as we're looking at healthcare and we're thinking about our child is turning 18, they're going to need to move from a pediatrician to adult healthcare services. What are some of the challenges that we're going to see? So in the area of personal challenges, that comes on both the part of the individual and their families. For the individual, there might be some fear, some anxiety, a sense of loss, because now we're expecting them to take a little bit bigger role in what they're doing, maybe some risk in moving to that adult healthcare provider. For us as family members, especially for me as a parent, the ability to let go a little bit, to give up some of the control of that day-to-day guidance and management that I provide for my child. Also to trust that your child can manage their health care. Now, like I said, I told you my son has fairly significant intellectual delays. There's not a lot of it, some of the more technical stuff that he's going to be able to manage, but there's little bits and pieces. So what is it that I can trust, that I can give to him and work with him so he understands, so that we can feel comfortable going into healthcare situations? Maybe it's that ability for us as families to be able to go into the doctor's office and to sit there and to not interfere with that doctor-patient relationship, but be there to support that doctor-patient relationship. We also have in the personal area opposition to healthy lifestyle. Our kids may not be that excited about having to start thinking about diet, exercise, relationships, making decisions for themselves about smoking, alcohol use, drug use, those sorts of things. They have to start thinking about some of those components as they get to be adults. Progression of healthcare conditions. Let's say they have a chronic condition. There might be some fear going in to that, knowing how much management it takes to think that, ooh, I've got to take over some of this as I'm getting older. Also understanding sexual development and all the responsibilities that can come with that piece. That's some personal barriers that we have to look at as we're looking at them passing the age of 18, 21, when we're leaving school, that sort of thing. There's structural barriers. We have to think about transportation. Do they drive? If they don't drive, how are we going to get them to doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, healthcare appointments, that sort of thing? Employment can be a barrier. Are they going to be working? Do they need to take off to have an appointment? That understanding of that give and take that we all have to do when we're thinking about our health care. Also, living independently. Will they live independently? Will they live with that supported assistance that they need? And then if they do live independently, how much of their health care do they need to take on? So we have to think about that. And then we have service barriers. When we think about moving from a pediatrician to an adult service provider, pediatricians are a little bit more warm and fuzzy, family oriented, that sort of thing. And a lot of times our pediatricians may not think about transition for our individuals with disabilities until they're 18. Well, at 18, then they have to move to those adult services. Pediatricians may take a little bit more time and have a little bit more understanding. When you get into those specialists and those service providers, they may need to be more direct, more on target, and not as warm and fuzzy. So we have to start navigating those pieces. Our individuals with disabilities need to have some basic understanding of their health insurance and what that is like. Publicly funded programs to pay if they have Medicaid because they have a waiver, those sorts of things. They need to have some basic understandings there. So there's a lot of barriers and stress when we start thinking about healthcare, but they realize this is one of the most important things that we have to do and that our young adults and adults have to start doing as they get older. So what are some things we can do? They need to have some basic knowledge. So when I think about my son, there's a lot of things he can't do, but basic knowledge. What are his medicines? How much does he take? And then getting that to the point that maybe he can take those himself. So you kind of work on it gradually. Little basic information about their insurance. They may not have their insurance card. You may teach them to carry it in their wallet, what it is and when to give it out. Emergency contacts. My son could not give you a name and string of phone numbers for emergency contacts. But if I take his phone, put them into a file, have them there, he knows where they are. So if they say, who are your emergency contacts? He can just go, here they are. And so he has that. So you have to start kind of thinking about how can we make this easy and what can we do to help them adjust? What can you do now? In your workbook, there's a whole section. It's like 6 pages. Yeah, 6 pages here. They divide it in ages 12 to 15, 15 to 18, 18 to 21 and beyond. And it's a checklist. And you're going to read through this checklist. And it'll kind of give you some ideas of things that you need to work on. You can check, do they know how to do this one right now? Is there a small step in this one that I can help support them to learn? And you'll work your way through this. It'll give you a lot of ideas of things that you know they need to work on. Then you break it down for your person, your child, because you know them better than anybody else. So what bits and pieces can we help and support them in understanding as they go through their healthcare? If you're a parent sitting here and you've got an itty bitty who's in elementary school, good for you to get this in your hands and start looking at it now. So this piece on healthcare before 12, it might be those basic hygiene things. Basic hygiene, brushing your teeth, understanding exercise. Basic hygiene, brushing your teeth, those are all job skills later on in life when they get out on a job that they have to have in place. So start figuring out what those little bits and pieces are that you can build upon and help them get to where they need to be. When you get your list of resources, Family Voices of Alabama, they have the Full Life Ahead workbook and stuff as part of their resources. So they have a care notebook, which is phenomenal. They have a transition to adult healthcare guide. I highly recommend you go over to those links, download those, put those in your information that you keep. They're wonderful resources. They give you lots of ideas about what you can be doing, ways you can be helping to prepare your child for their adult life in the area of healthcare. Also at a national level, we have Got Transition. They have a family toolkit, again, something you can download, but The other things I found on theirs that I really like, they have a healthcare timeline, and this healthcare timeline is broken down by age. So ages 12 to 13, what can we be doing to help them? Ages 14 to 15, 16 to 17, they break it on. And they give you the bits and pieces and steps, but they took it one step further. So it's not only just for the individual with disabilities, but they do one for us as parents, which I kind of need as I'm going along, because it tells me what I can be encouraging my son to do. What can I be working on? And in reading through this, there were lots of things that was like, oh my gosh, I need to go back. Make sure he understands these things, or that he has access to these things. So these are great. Download these, keep them close, keep them in your notebook as part of your notebook as you go forward. I'm going to turn it over to Sandy.
Thank you, Becca. So we're going to talk about who is your child and how some of the ways that you can communicate to others. You know, one of the important roles you have as a parent is to advocate for your child, to communicate in a variety of ways of who your child is and what are their needs. You as parents are the constant in your child's life in multiple environments, engaging with a variety of people, whether it's relatives, it can be school, it can be doctors, it can be agencies, it can be recreational coaches, it can be friends. Within these relationships, you're going to be sharing a lot of different information. You're going to get test results, you're going to get evaluations, you're going to get letters, IEPs, reports, all kinds of things. So how can you take all this information and bring it together, all the important details to share with those you encounter? Create a communication tool that reflects the strengths and challenges of your child. Create a one-pager, a snapshot, a profile of your child. And as a parent, your document may include some of the things that are on this list: the positive characteristics, the likes and dislikes, the interests, areas of strength, areas of challenge, successes, and dreams. So this is my son, David. I have 3 sons who are now adults, but they all had disabilities, and they had various disabilities that opened the door to a lot of doctors, individuals, agencies. So there are times that to really realize that our children have what I used to call the invisible disabilities, and at times that those that are around our children just don't understand. They might affect their learning. It could affect the relationships, friendships, social skills. And so this is what we dealt with. My oldest one, he had Tourette syndrome. And again, with Tourette's, it's a movement disorder. They can make noises. And so that was really prominent. You know, people knew exactly, oh my, you know, what's going on with him. The other thing is he had severe learning disabilities. And so that wasn't very visible until he got into the learning environment. My other son, David, he was in the autism spectrum, and he had a few other things. He suffered from asthma. He has central auditory processing. He also had nocturnal epilepsy. From age 4 until he was 16, none of us really slept because it only affected him during his sleep mode. So it really affected how he learned. It really affected his social skills and how he would deal with people, understanding abstract, not making eye contact. But both of my sons looked like big football players. They were tall, they were muscular. So it was really hard sometimes for people to determine really who this child was. And so it was so invisible in so many ways. So you're going to see that as you're listing on the strengths and the challenges, that one of the things is I have invisible disability under both of the categories, because again, it was a strength. There were people who would deal with my son and not make prejudgments over him. Then there were those who it was a real challenge to him when it got into the learning environment because they didn't see the disability. They didn't understand why he wouldn't look at them or why he didn't want to be touched. So it really can be on both sides when you're looking at strengths and challenges. The other thing is to look at the wording you're using. Words are very powerful. And so you see that on the list under strengths, there is high energy. Well, David was very hyperactive, but I wanted to turn that into a positive. I wish I had the energy that he had. And so I named it high energy. So again, words are so important. The other thing you can see that it's not just academic. He had a lot of different strengths and a lot of different challenges in various ways. So even if your child smiles a lot and is a happy child, that is such a strength. There are a variety of types of profiles that you can create. In the book, there is examples, but we as parent resource centers also have different samples. Some even put the picture of your child on it. And we're going to talk about how you would share it. So just remember not to forget that you're putting down the whole child, not just academics. So why do you need a profile? Why do you need the snapshot, this one pager? Every day brings positive and challenging experiences, and many times the challenge seems to be in our face. I know for us it was. And so to bring out what's the positive, the one pager really helped me creating a profile for my children and really to see the strengths that they had. So it will emphasize again, who is my whole child? It's important that you start with the strengths. I think it's always important to start with the positive. It gives you a communication tool to utilize during IEP meetings within the parent input of the IEP. You have a role and a part being on that team and having that IEP, and you'll see in your IEP there's a parent input. This can really help you put that together. It can also, I used it in starting a new school year with all the new teachers they might have, the guidance counselor, that they can know who my son is. And especially with my son with the autism spectrum, you did not want to touch his head. He was very sensitive to that. It could create a lot of behaviors. And so we wanted the staff to know, these are some of the things that were about my son. I also shared it with the doctors because we supported rich men and the medical my son was before they actually came in there, that he wasn't just the medical diagnosis. Also sports, sports can be very different. My son was able to know who he was and how was the best way that he could be part of the group, was able to bowl. So we did that. But again, the people that were Parks and Rec had to know who he was and how was the best way that he could be part of the group in Parks and Rec. And maybe it's just your relatives or your family. We had relatives who did not want to understand that my child had disabilities because he looked typical. And so again, that really helped me to share that. And as a parent, you're part of many teams of various situations. This document will help promote the partnership that as you share information, it assists everybody to be on the same page. And that's what it's about, to be a team. So again, you want to focus on the whole child. You want to prepare the information with others and make that communication tool that's going to change over the years. I did it all the way through high school. We started in elementary and went through the years. Again, it helps in participating in IEPs and it promotes that partnership. And you'll see, we talked about the I'm Determined. They also have a one pager you can go on and it will assist you in creating the profile. They're also in your packet you're going to be getting. We have painting, the big picture that's going to be in your digital packet along with other resources. Okay, you know that there's all kinds of paperwork, and mission organization is truly what that is. It's a mission. So we want to talk a little bit about how overwhelming just the massive amounts of paperwork and documentation that you're going to have. I had a 4-drawer file cabinet. And having 3 kids in special ed, we did have a lot of information. And all through the years, all the medical that we had to keep track of. So again, you're going to have to decide how to organize it sensibly. And talking about keeping the records, again, how many things you're going to have. Part of the record piece is it's going to validate you as a parent to be able to have that information that you can share and to have it readily for them. It's going to assist in tracking the progress. You're going to always be having these progress reports coming in. It's going to assist them in getting services. It was so important as my children got older and we started seeking out agencies outside of the community that they were asking for documentation. And we had to go back. I even had to bring up when they were originally diagnosed. That was many years back. And so again, it did assist in them getting services out in the community. It saves you a lot of time as a parent if you can get your stuff organized. Probably the greatest thing is it will reduce stress. Life is stressful enough, and having children with disabilities, again, it just adds to it. Sometimes you're so physically tired, it's hard to even think. And so if you can find a way to organize your paperwork and get your records in order, it definitely will make a difference in the stress level. So what are the documents that you need to keep? Again, the profile, keeping that because you'll use it a lot. You'll be surprised how much you use that. I journaled a lot just to remember what are some of the things that happened through the years and to keep track of events. What are some of the things that I did as a parent? To have to go back and try to remember that, there was just no way. And so for me, I journaled a lot. You're going to be getting assessments and all kinds of evaluations. You want to make sure they're in an orderly fashion. Work samples are really important. And even those special awards that our kids got. Communication is key. To keep track of a phone log of some type, a contact log of who did you talk to, when did you talk to, what were the results of the talk, what was going to come next. It's important to keep that. All your medical information, the diagnosis, and as you went through all the doctors, behavior reports, report cards, your progress reports are very important. Again, keeping your IEPs in order. I had to, at the time my children were going in through the agencies, I actually had to prove when he became eligible for special services. Again, knowing what the policies are in your school handbook, having the contact information of your staff at school and in the community, knowing who is that person I'm supposed to be getting hold of? How do I get hold of them? What is their email? What is their phone number? What are those agency people? It will just build on top of each other. And so that's why it's important to have those documents. So you want to get organized. So what are some helps that can help us as a family? You're going to have to determine what works best for you. It might be a document management system online. It could be a simple file binder. It could be a notebook. It could be a file cabinet. But at the same time, you have to look at the different environments that you're going to be in. Is it going to be, you're going to need certain things just at home? What about when you go to an IEP meeting? What are you going to carry with you when you go into that IEP meeting? Is it going to be a hard copy of stuff that you want to share? Again, are you going to bring your laptop? Are you working with agencies or doctors? Again, what is it you can use to bring items that you might need? So part of what really helped me, and we have used them, we do have some things that are the little file binders that we have shared with families. A lot of families, when they come into special ed in our county, would get one, and it just helps you keep your IEP of that year. It might be the evaluation that your child went through, some of the key documents. So you can see on the slide here that rightslaw.com has a really good article. It's called The Paper Chase, and it's been around for a while, but it's very, very good. Also, a lot of your agencies and your nonprofits within their own organization and online, they will have ways to help you to get organized. Pathfinders for autism. Again, your child doesn't have to have autism, but there are things within that one that might help you organize your paperwork. And then there's those that aren't even disability-based that can help you. Organizedhome.com helped me a lot. Also, imom.com is another one. So there are a variety of things out there. And if you are in need of any others, we will look as a Parent Resource Center and the Disability Center to look at, what is it your personal needs are and how we can help you. So what's the next step? I always say that knowledge is power. And so we want you to know that through Pathways to the Future virtual series, that we have some coming up. Session 4, that is waivers, that's going to be March the 11th. Session 5, the guardianship piece, which we have a lot of people asking about that. And we also are very pleased that we are going to have Session 6, the Special Needs Trust. So again, each county be looking at, what is going to be coming out. We'll be putting out information on Facebook page, websites, as such. And visit your Parent Resource Center, whether it's virtual now, and learn about who the staff is, the variety of library resources, the community and organizations we have, lots of information that we can share with you, and who are the agency contacts for you. There are a lot of national, state, and local resources. There's events and webinars out there for parents that we never had. So please contact us for that type of information. And then in the book on Full Life Ahead, there is a wonderful page, and I'm so glad they included this on page 53. It's called Tips for Parents. I can't tell you enough to create your own support system. Who is it that's going to be there? Whether they're silent or not, just have somebody beside your side or somebody who can advise you. It can be one person, it can be a group of people, but try to get that support system around you. It could be your family. A lot of times it's not. Sometimes it's a friend. Sometimes it's somebody in the community. I can't express enough about doing self-care. It is so important to take care of yourself as the parent. You have relationships you really need to take care of during the hard times so that you stay healthy and you stay well. And you can't be there for your child if you don't take care of yourself. And the other thing I always tell parents is just breathe. I have a wonderful big plaque in my house that says, just breathe, because sometimes that's what I need to just see. Take one day at a time, continue to learn and become knowledgeable. Take the time to learn. Things change. We always say, I don't know how much training we go and do, like Medicaid waivers, constantly changing. So just keep yourself open to learning. There's a lot of people out there ready to help you, and just keep learning all the time and become knowledgeable.
There we go. Thank you so much, Sandy. Right, we've got a couple of questions. Can we ask the school-based team to help us with these activities, or is this the parents' responsibilities?
I can answer that, Marie.
Perfect.
It's absolutely the school, the parents, it's a team. As we've talked about throughout the presentation, it is definitely everyone that is on board. So reach out to your parent-teacher resource center, reach out to your case managers, and definitely have those discussions.
Excellent, thank you very much. Question number 2, what does transition planning look like for homeschooling families? This lady's son will actually be homeschooled through high school, and he will not have an IEP.
I can answer that also, Marie.
Perfect, thank you, Melissa.
Homeschool students, everyone should be discussing and doing transition planning, whether you're homeschool or you're in a school, or if you're a private day school. Transition planning is important for all students as we transition from high school to adult life. Having those discussions and knowing those supports is always important.
Excellent, thank you. And then if you are working with another agency, department or vision, can the school still be part of helping, or does it all rely on the outside agency?
I'll go ahead and answer that also. Yeah. Absolutely, the outside agencies and the schools should be partnering throughout the IEP process and after post-secondary education as well.
Excellent. We have another one here from Deborah as well. It's an absolute pleasure. She's asking, how can we go back and watch the first 2 sessions that I missed? So on our page, factfred.com, all our sessions are actually right there. So you can, everything is under, I think, the events. So Courtney, can I have the next slide, please? This is just going to look at our PRCs. So if you have any additional questions or require more information. So our first one, if you need to contact the Caroline County one, Susan Gale would be the person to contact there. We also, out of Caroline County, we have Melissa White, the Special Education Transition Coordinator. Next slide, please. For Spotsylvania County, we have Sandy Sprague and Courtney Seeley there. And for Stafford County, we have Becca Leggett and myself, Marie Waite. And that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Just want to thank you all for joining us for the presentation on Full Life Ahead. We want to thank FACT for hosting us today and encourage those who would like to learn more about FACT to go ahead and visit that website at your leisure. You're going to find FACT's new Fredericksburg Area of Transition Guide on the website, as well as links to the YouTube channel where you can find our previous sessions. And if you go to the events page, and keep an eye on that events page, because that's where you can register for upcoming events. And I think Sandy did share that our next event in March is going to be on waiver. So that's a really popular one. As soon as we get that registration open, you can register for that. We have two things that I want to share with you right now. One of them is a hyperlinked PDF that looks like this. So all of the links that we shared during the presentation, including some others that are just very popular transition resources that we share with our families when they come in, are on this page, including a link to today's presentation. So if you wanted to go back and look at one of the slides, you can just click on this and it'll take you right to the presentation. Here is some information about the parent resource centers in Region 3. Fredericksburg City and King George County do not have parent resource centers. So if you have specific questions regarding transition, you need to speak to your child's case manager about either a job coach or a transition specialist or somebody else in the county that can help you with those things. This is a visual transition booklet for students who may have more significant needs. And so if this is something that you want to be able to work through with your child, this would be a really good one. Mm-hmm. And as you click on the links, you'll see that these pop up. Most of them are PDFs or websites. So you're going to be able to have this document to refer back to. There's so much good stuff on here.
And Courtney, I was also going to mention when you talked about King George, City of Fredericksburg, if you're any of the parents on here who are homeschooling or have children in private school, if you have questions about community resources, other questions about things that you've heard that FACT does, the Parent Resource Centers do, feel free to reach out to any of us with those questions, because we can help you through those processes.